3:41 p.m. local time. The Caribbean Sea lies calm, almost suspiciously calm. From the flight deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier moving through international waters, the view looks ordinary. Blue water, open sky, routine activity. To anyone without training, nothing seems out of place. But at sea, danger is never measured by what the eye can see. It is measured by what the sensors find. Deep inside the ship in the Combat Information Center, radar screens glow in the dim light. Tracks move across them in steady, predictable patterns. Commercial air traffic, distant weather clutter, nothing unusual. Until the picture changes. A new group of contacts appears high above. Fast, clean, military. 5 of them. The watch officer leans in. Speed readings jump. Altitude starts dropping. These are not civilian aircraft. These are fighter jets closing in quickly from the south. On the bridge, the captain is informed at once. No shouting, no panic, just instant recognition. The carrier does not alter course. It does not have to. This ship is not operating by itself. It sits at the heart of a fully integrated strike group. Destroyers, cruisers, submarines, airborne surveillance, and satellites, all linked into one network. Every mile of surrounding airspace is under watch. Every signal is recorded. Every movement is measured. Identification comes quickly. Venezuelan Air Force F-16S. Older airframes, only modestly modernized, kept flying through careful maintenance and creative workarounds. On paper, they are Venezuela's top fighters. In practice, they represent something even more important to Caracas: symbolism. These jets are not only military assets, they are political instruments, signs of defiance, resistance, and relevance. In recent weeks, tension across the Caribbean has been quietly building. U.S. naval activity has increased. Counter-narcotics operations have stepped up. Smuggling corridors once seen as reliable have become far less secure. Every move has stayed within legal boundaries, but the message has been impossible to miss. Venezuela has noticed. Military analysts know this pattern well. When a smaller power cannot match raw capability, it often reaches for proximity instead. Close approaches, low flyovers, aggressive maneuvers, actions meant to provoke a response and create headlines. But the U.S. Navy does not move on impulse. It moves on doctrine. As the 5 F-16S continue inbound, the carrier strike group remains steady. No fighters launch, no abrupt maneuver follows. Nothing escalates. Everything is logged. Everything is observed. On the flight deck, sailors pause and glance upward. This is not unfamiliar territory for them. What they feel is not fear, but professional curiosity. Beneath their boots is a ship weighing more than 100,000 tons, built to endure pressure of every kind: physical, strategic, political. Inside the CIC, data floods in. Radar returns, speed profiles, altitude changes, electronic emissions. The fighters are transmitting now. Radars are active, radios are keyed. Engines are pushed harder as the jets descend. Every signal adds to the picture. Every second tells a story. What the pilots inside those cockpits likely see as a display of strength looks very different from the carrier's side. To the strike group, this is a stream of information. Patterns, frequencies, reactions, behavior under stress. The kind of data that cannot truly be recreated in training and cannot simply be bought. The Venezuelan jets continue downward. This is not a distant pass. It is deliberate, assertive, and carefully calculated. Still, the carrier stays on course. This is the point where miscalculation is born, where events can turn on one decision. One jet drifting a little too far, one radar lock misunderstood, one pilot mistaking restraint for uncertainty. But the U.S. Navy has learned over decades of operations around the world that escalation always favors the impatient. As the distance shrinks, the tension sharpens. The airspace around the carrier is no longer empty. It is crowded with intent, with risk, with cameras and sensors capturing every second. 5 jets, 1 carrier, seconds away from the next move. And the Venezuelan pilots do not yet realize it. But the most important part of this encounter has already begun. The first jet breaks formation. On radar, the change is immediate. One contact accelerates and drops its nose. Altitude unwinds fast. Then a second follows. Then a third. Within moments, all 5 Venezuelan F-16S abandon their level approach and pitch forward into a steep descent. This is no routine flyby. In the Combat Information Center, the symbols on the screens change color. Speed vectors stretch longer. Closure rates climb. The systems do not guess. They calculate. And the math is unmistakable. The aircraft are diving directly toward the carrier group. From the bridge, the horizon still looks calm. Flat sea, open sky. But then the sound arrives. Low at first, then unmistakable. A deep rising thunder from jet engines pushed far beyond cruise power. On the flight deck, sailors look up as shadows race across the clouds. The F-16 Fighting Falcon remains a fast aircraft, even by modern standards. Light, agile, built for aggressive maneuvering. And in this moment, the pilots are using every bit of that performance. Afterburners flare. Infrared signatures intensify. The fighters slash through layers of air at high speed. From inside the Venezuelan cockpits, this probably feels powerful, dramatic, decisive, the kind of move that forces a reaction. But the carrier gives them none. No alarms ripple across the deck. No scramble order comes. The ship does not turn toward the threat. It does not turn away. It holds its course and speed exactly as planned. Because long before the jets came into view, they were already being tracked. Inside the ship's layered defensive network, everything is active, but quietly. Long-range radar continues scanning the sky. Passive sensors listen. Electronic warfare systems collect emissions without announcing themselves. This is not the moment for noise. It is the moment for clarity. As the jets descend, they begin spreading laterally, opening space between them for a dramatic pass. One angles toward the bow. Two drift toward the starboard side. The remaining pair hang slightly higher, observing. It is classic intimidation geometry. The closest jet tears into view over the flight deck, low enough for sailors to make out its markings. The pass is fast, loud, and unmistakably deliberate. Pressure ripples through the air, a maneuver meant to dominate the moment. But dominance depends on control, and control is exactly what the pilots do not fully have. Every radar sweep from those jets is being captured. Every radio call is being recorded. Every fluctuation in engine output, every adjustment in altitude, every correction made by human hands under pressure, it is all becoming data. The descent continues. One jet drops lower than the others, skimming beneath its wingman. For a brief instant, the spacing tightens. The margin for error narrows. At these speeds, even a small misjudgment can become disastrous. Still, the carrier does not respond. This is not hesitation, it is discipline. The U.S. Navy's rules of engagement are clear, but they are also strategic. Force is not the first answer, it is the last, especially when the real objective is to prevent escalation while preserving the advantage. And that advantage is growing with every passing second. The Venezuelan pilots may believe they are pressuring the carrier, but from the carrier's perspective, the jets are exposing themselves, their tactics, their limitations, their dependence on intimidation over precision coordination. As the fighters pull out of the bottom of their dives and level off, they begin to climb. Their formation is looser now. The pass did not trigger the reaction they expected. No sudden turn, no visible movement of defensive systems. No radio challenge shouted back at them. Just silence. And that silence has weight. For the pilots, it introduces uncertainty. Did the message land? Did it matter? Or had they misunderstood the entire moment? As the F-16s climb away, the carrier remains what it was seconds before. Massive, steady, unmoved. But beneath that calm exterior, the encounter has already changed. What started as a performance of bravado has become something far more important. Because the dive is over, and now everything those jets did on the way down belongs to the United States Navy. By the time the Venezuelan fighters begin climbing away, the most important phase of the encounter is already complete. Nothing detonates, no aircraft are brought down, no alarms echo across the decks. To an outside observer, it might seem as though nothing happened. That would be the wrong conclusion. Inside the carrier strike group's network, the airspace is alive with information. Every second of the descent has been captured, classified, and stored. Not as spectacle, but as intelligence. Modern naval warfare is not decided by who flies closest. It is decided by who reveals the most. As the F-16IS Dove, their systems spoke loudly. Fire control radars swept. Navigation radars adjusted. Radios filled with cockpit chatter and coordination calls back to controllers. Engine performance shifted as afterburners ignited, producing bright infrared signatures against the cooler Caribbean air. Each one of those actions leaves a fingerprint. The carrier's sensors do not need to announce themselves in order to listen. Passive detection systems quietly absorb radar waveforms. Electronic support measures identify frequencies, pulse repetition intervals, and modulation patterns. The jet's emissions are matched against existing libraries, refined and updated in real time. This is more than surveillance. It is understanding. Every aircraft carries a signature, the way its radar behaves under pressure, the way its pilot communicates during aggressive maneuvering, the way its engine responds when pushed hard at low altitude. The Venezuelan pilots believe they are projecting strength. In reality, they are broadcasting, and the closer they come, the clearer the broadcast becomes. One jet's radar briefly spikes as it tries to measure distance more precisely. Another makes a sharper altitude correction than expected, compensating for turbulence near the sea surface. A third trails the formation by half a second during the pull-up. Small details, human details. But real advantage is often built in the margins. Inside the Combat Information Center, analysts watch the patterns form. This is not their first encounter with Venezuelan aircraft, but it is their most complete. Training flights do not reproduce genuine pressure. Exercises do not recreate real uncertainty. This moment does. The information coming in now is the kind that cannot be bought, guessed, or simulated. It has to be given, and the jets are giving it away freely. As the fighters climb off, their emissions begin to fade. Radars change modes, radios quiet. The performance is over, but the exchange has already happened. The carrier never needed to launch a single shot because this was never really about destroying aircraft. It was about seeing them clearly. In naval doctrine, there is an idea older than radar and newer than missiles: escalation dominance. The ability to control the pace of a confrontation without ever looking like you are controlling it. The Venezuelan pilots came in close, fast, and loud. They forced proximity, they forced attention. What they did not force was fear. The carrier strike group did not react because it did not need to. It had already gained something more valuable than a tactical response. It had learned. From that moment on, those F-16S were no longer unknowns. Their behavior under pressure had been recorded. Their system characteristics had been sharpened. Their tactics had been observed under real conditions. If those aircraft ever appear again, closer, louder, or under different circumstances, the Navy will not be meeting them for the first time. It will be the second. And in military encounters, the second meeting almost always favors the side that listened the first time. As the last jet disappears into the distance, the Caribbean sky settles back into its calm blue. Deck crews return to their routines. Handlers guide aircraft with practiced signals. Operations continue as if nothing happened. To a casual observer, it might look like restraint. To those who understand it, it looks like a quiet kind of victory. Because the most decisive moment in a confrontation is not always when force is used. Sometimes it happens when one side realizes, too late, that it has already revealed everything. As the Venezuelan F-16 climb away, the airspace above the carrier clears almost instantly. No pursuit follows, no American fighters launch from the deck. The strike group does not tighten formation or broadcast warnings. Instead, it does exactly what it has done from the first radar contact. It remains steady. To the untrained eye, that kind of silence can be misleading. Stillness can look like hesitation. Lack of movement can feel like uncertainty. Inside the strike group, it means something very different: control. The Navy's response to provocation is not driven by emotion. It is built on control of space, of information, and most importantly, of escalation. Even as the jets pull away, the carrier's sensors continue tracking them until they fade beyond range. Every shift in heading is recorded. Every change in speed is noted. The encounter does not end when the aircraft leave. It ends when the data stops. On the bridge, the captain reviews incoming reports. There is no discussion about whether to respond with force. That decision was made long before the jets ever appeared. The rules of engagement are clear, but the thinking behind them goes deeper. You do not escalate when escalation benefits the other side. For Venezuela, the objective was straightforward: force a reaction, capture the moment, turn proximity into a message. The Navy denies all of it. No dramatic footage of jets launching, no tense radio exchanges, no visible shift into a combat posture that could be recorded and replayed. Just 5 aircraft passing a ship that never changed course. That absence is intentional. Within the strike group, systems remain active but understated. Defensive layers stay ready. Air patrol assets wait beyond the horizon. Subsurface units continue their quiet watch. At no point is the carrier exposed. It simply does not advertise its readiness. This approach comes from decades of experience. From Cold War standoffs to modern gray zone encounters, the lesson has been consistent. Visible reactions often reward provocation. Silence, on the other hand, shifts pressure back onto the one who initiated it. As the Venezuelan pilots return, they are left with an uncomfortable question. Did it work? They flew close. They made noise. They pushed aggressively. And yet the carrier never reacted the way they expected. No course change, no visible response, no acknowledgement. In military terms, that uncertainty matters, because when a force built to dominate the air chooses not to demonstrate it, it points to something deeper: confidence, preparation, and the understanding that escalation is always a choice. Back on the carrier, nothing changes. Aircraft are positioned, fuel systems are checked, maintenance crews move with the same rhythm as before. The routine continues, and that routine is the message. The Navy does not need to prove its presence through reaction. Its presence is assumed, its capability is understood, its restraint is deliberate. Strategically, this is control at its highest level: the ability to absorb pressure without reflecting it back, to let the other side expend effort while maintaining the advantage. The Venezuelan jets are gone, but their actions have not been ignored. They have been processed, and in naval terms, that means something very specific. It means the encounter has been folded into planning, readiness, and future responses that may never be visible. The moment ends quietly. No chase, no warning shot, just an entry in logs and systems. The Navy did not act. It did not need to, because in this situation, silence was not the absence of strength. It was the clearest display of it. By nightfall, the Caribbean looks unchanged. Calm water, open sky, ships moving along their routes. No visible trace of tension, no debris, no smoke, nothing to mark what happened hours earlier. But these moments are never measured by what the ocean shows afterward. They are measured by what changes beneath the surface, inside the systems, inside the analysis, inside the people involved. The data collected during the encounter is already moving from real-time tracking into deeper analysis. Radar signatures are refined, communication patterns are logged, tactical behavior is studied carefully, without exaggeration. This is how modern naval power builds on itself. The Venezuelan pilots returned believing they completed their mission. They approached closely. They demonstrated intent. They showed presence. On paper, it may even be recorded as a success. But presence alone does not change the balance. What they cannot see is what happens next. From this point forward, those aircraft are no longer unknown. Their response times, formation discipline, and system behavior under pressure, all of it now exists as reference for future planning. And that knowledge does not fade. In the days that follow, U.S. operations in the region continue exactly as before. The carrier remains on station. Patrol patterns stay consistent. There is no surge to show strength and no withdrawal to suggest retreat. That consistency is deliberate. Sometimes the message is simple. Nothing you did changed anything. For Venezuela's leadership, that creates a problem. Actions like this are meant to produce a visible reaction. Without one, the narrative weakens. The question shifts from, did we challenge them? To, why didn't they respond? And that question carries weight. Because a force that does not react publicly is often a force that does not need to. History is full of moments where escalation seemed unavoidable until one side chose restraint and, in doing so, removed the other side's advantage. This encounter belongs in that category. No confrontation followed, no retaliation was required. Yet the balance shifted quietly, not through intimidation, but through discipline. The carrier strike group demonstrated something more powerful than aggression. Control. Control of sensors, control of information, control of timing, and ultimately control of how the situation unfolds. The Venezuelan jets descended towards steel and silence, expecting acknowledgement. What they received instead was analysis, and that difference matters. In any future encounter, whether days, months, or years from now, the Navy will remember this moment. The data collected will shape decisions that may never be visible, and the pilots involved may never fully realize how much they revealed in those few seconds over the Caribbean. Because power is not always measured by what you do in the moment. It is measured by what you gain without acting. As the carrier continues its patrol, the lesson settles into place where it belongs. Provocation does not demand response. Noise does not equal leverage. And restraint, when backed by capability, is not weakness. It is dominance. 5 jets approached an American aircraft carrier to make a statement. What followed was quieter and far more decisive.